Hello, welcome to the Cutdown Day reaction. Matthew Coller along with Will Ragatz, Sports Illustrated Vikings reporter. And Will, I hope you got a pot of coffee on because we are going to broadcast nonstop through the night if we have to until the Vikings do something with the cap space that they created with their cutdowns today. Are you prepared?
Yeah, I'm prepared. But I mean, in reality, we know that as soon as we stop recording here, they're going to do something. But we'll do our best to talk about what has happened so far today and maybe what could happen in the future.
All right, then we'll start with Luigi making the team. Congratulations to him. No, I mean, actually, it's a cool story for Luigi Villain. He's an undrafted player who has a great final look in the preseason, ends up making the 53. As we know, 53s are not completely set, so hopefully his family doesn't celebrate him making the team and then they make a change quickly, but clearly that is not the biggest story of the day. It is the Vikings shockingly cutting Armon Watts. And this is always the oxymoron that is what surprise cuts could be coming. It's like, it won't be a surprise if I see it coming. And this was a surprise. In fact, I might even go a shock, Will, that a guy who practiced with the first team all summer long, first and second team rotating in, would just get to the end of training camp and they say, no, we're good. We're going to get Ross Blacklock from the
Ross Blacklock.
Ross Blacklock from the Houston Texans. Like, what? Why did this happen in your opinion?
I completely agree that it goes beyond the mere surprise term and into the shocking or stunning realm. When I saw that notification popped up, that was the last thing I was expecting. Armon Watts, like you said, has been a first-team player basically all offseason. He was listed in their unofficial depth chart as a starting player, like alongside Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson. When the Vikings were in their base 3-4, Armon Watts was a starter. He was on the field. So that makes this really, really surprising. Now, you look back and you can maybe see some signs where in the second preseason game, the Vikings did not play any of their starters, with the exception of Armon Watts playing 12 snaps. So maybe, hey, they're still trying to evaluate him a little bit in this scheme. I have to imagine ultimately that's what it came down to, was they didn't love how he fit playing that 5 technique in this scheme. Like maybe they thought he was better suited because he had a breakout year last year. He played almost 700 snaps. He started 9 games. He had 5 sacks, but that was as a 3 technique in a 4-3. This is a different scheme. I mean, I wonder, maybe shouldn't you have realized that earlier? I don't know what the answer is there. It also creates a little bit of cap space. They save, I think, $1.2 million by going from Watts to Blacklock. And Blacklock's interesting in his own right, even though they didn't have to give up very much to get him. He was a second-round pick just 2 years ago, somebody I remember looking into in the pre-draft process in 2020, a good athlete. Hasn't really done much of anything with the Texans, which is why he was cheap. But yeah, a really surprising move. But I guess it came down to scheme and clearing a little bit of money.
It has to be scheme. Because last year, just pulled up the PFF data here, in terms of his pass rushing grade, he ranked 21st among all guys who played at least 50% of the snaps. So players who were regular or starters among defensive tackles, and he was 21st. I mean, that's pretty good. Like, out of a lot of guys who play defensive tackle that can't pressure the quarterback at all, he had a decent pass rush win rate. We even saw him in the first preseason game get after the quarterback. It seemed like, and even when I talked to Armon Watts the other day, it was like we were talking about his development from somebody who was a 6th round pick to what appeared to be, and this is like old takes exposed on me because I didn't see this coming, but appeared to be someone who would be kind of a key role player on this team because Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson are just not pass rushers. And Ross Blacklock doesn't look like from his numbers that he's really a pass rusher either. So it may just be that this is what they think they want from that position, from that either 5 technique, or they were looking for just more defensive tackle depth because more often than not, they're really not going to play a traditional 3-4. It's going to be the nickel defense most of the time with the edge rushers standing up a lot. But, it's just surprising that you would say, no, this guy is so poor of a fit that we're kind of throwing out his actual results from last year and saying, let's move on to somebody else. That is, of course, unless, Will, there is someone else on the way, and there's someone else who had been rumored at one point, and then it just disappeared, and that would be Ndamukong Suh. So if Ndamukong Suh shows up, then I think we'll go, oh, okay, well, I guess I see why you needed that cap space and that player became no longer relevant, because we kind of talked about this, right? That there wasn't really room for Armon Watts and Ndamukong Suh, except for my argument was that Armon Watts then wouldn't play and Suh might not be as good. So I'm not really exactly sure how this is going to make them better, even if Ndamukong Suh does end up here.
Yeah, I think Suh coming would make it make more sense. If you look at it as just a 1-for-1, all right, we're replacing Armon Watts with Ross Blacklock, I'm not sure. I don't think that makes you better. I think that's a risky move to make when you are trying to win games and pressure the quarterback. And that's a big part of winning games. Like you said, Dalvin Tomlinson, Harrison Phillips, that's not really their game. I think it'll be interesting to ask Kwesi and Kevin and maybe other coaches about if and when we get that chance. But Ross Blacklock, to try to kind of understand it from the Vikings perspective, he does have still some upside. He's only been in the league for 2 years. He got better from his really disastrous rookie season to last year. I think he had a 50-ish PFF grade after a 30 his rookie year. And the run defense was a problem for him last year. If you go by PFF, I haven't grinded the tape. He had a pretty good pass rush grade. He had 25 pressures, 2 sacks. And that was the thing on him coming out of TCU, is that he is like 6'3", 290 with a lot of explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. So maybe there's something that like defensive line coach Chris Rumpf saw in Ross Blacklock and his pass rush ability, and they think that it'll be they think he could be a similar player to what Watts would have been in this scheme, or maybe a slight downgrade where you save some money, but still just the 1-for-1, I think right now makes the Vikings worse. Like, I think Armon Watts was going to be a 400, 500 snap guy in a rotation and probably lead the defensive line, not the outside linebackers, just the pure defensive linemen in pressures. So yeah, it's really surprising to me. We will just wait and see if there is another move coming that maybe makes this make a little more sense. Or maybe Ross Blacklock will turn out to be good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly is possible. Right. Yeah, I said he wasn't really that much of a pass rush guy. I mean, he does have the profile as far as the size goes of a pass rush guy. But, when it comes to his actual results, they were pretty unspectacular. As you mentioned, that he ends up with 25 total pressures, played under 500 snaps. Like, this isn't necessarily somebody that's going to, step right in and then all of a sudden really change their pass rush ability. So I'm a little, I'm a little surprised by this unless a different move is coming. Do you think it's possible that a center could be on the way with this cap space? What if, just throwing this out there, what if the Vikings didn't know about JC Treader and then they were like, oh, he wants to come here? I guess we'll create some cap space for you. I'm mostly being facetious, but imagine.
Yeah, that would be a pretty funny story. I think we've talked about it a lot. They could absolutely still use a center. I mean, you're going into this season that's now less than 2 weeks away, and Garrett Bradbury, the prospect of him going against Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt and other Jerron Reed, other Packers defensive tackles, I think is one of the main concerns. So we're going to be kind of scouring the waivers and stuff like that. Like you said, this initial 53 is not going to be the 53 that we see when they play the Packers. It just isn't. I mean, it's a question of, are there 1 or 2 differences or like 6 differences? Because they're going to look at waivers. They're going to look at like veteran free agents who were released. They're going to look at possible trades. I mean, we saw Kwesi make 2 of them today. And so bringing in a center, I think, could be an option. Like the Chiefs, I believe, released Austin Ryder, who's a veteran. The Cowboys waived Alec Lindstrom. There are going to be some guys out there. We just talked about it a bunch last show. I think JC Treader is getting kind of blackballed by the league. I don't think they're going to turn around and make that move. But yeah, it would make sense for them to keep addressing the trenches on both sides of the ball at center and then maybe adding another defensive lineman.
Yeah, and of course the issue with getting a center at this point is that you can't really play them right away, that it would take kind of, I don't want to say quite midway through the season, but at least a month in order for them to feel comfortable with whoever that center is. But it would act as some sort of a parachute if they get 4 or 5 weeks into the season, and if they get blown away in the interior offensive line in the first couple of weeks, and then they just say, we need to kind of save our season here at that position. That's basically what they did last year with Mason Cole. When Garrett Bradbury went down, they said, well, actually, Cole is kind of playing better than Bradbury did. And then I believe there was talk that they wanted to keep Mason Cole to compete with Bradbury, but then Pittsburgh gave him a pretty good offer, which of course is another move that happened today and is not shocking at all. Jesse Davis being traded to Pittsburgh for a 2025 conditional 7th round pick. Here's my question on this, because you could give a reasonable football reaction if you like, but what will you be doing in 2025, Will, when this conditional pick comes up?
I have no idea. I will quite possibly still be doing this, but you never know. That is 3 years away. That is a long time. I'm going to be like 27, 28, which is bizarre to me as currently a 24-year-old. But yeah, it's an interesting, it's not an interesting move. What am I saying? It's the Jesse Davis. I was going to try to talk it up. That's just my instinct. But no, Jesse Davis, he lost the battle to Ed Ingram. When they signed him in March, it seemed like, okay, he's maybe the favorite along with Chris Reed. But it was one of those ones where it was like the amount that of money they gave him and what you heard from like literally every Dolphins fan and reporter who watched him play just didn't match up. So that was always kind of weird. And he, of course, I think was playing out of position at tackle at times in Miami. But yeah, then Ed Ingram beats him out. Ed Ingram has looked really good throughout camp, developed quickly, played well in some limited preseason action, played well from what we saw in like the joint practices against the 49ers. So not shocking at all. It saves them $1.5 million, but I believe they have $750,000 in dead cap penalties both this year and next. So that's not ideal, but a good GM will recognize, hey, maybe this wasn't the best move. Let's just cut bait and move on. And that's what the Vikings did. And both of their moves today, the trades, kind of point towards a couple depth guys as people to just keep an eye on, I would say. Because with Jesse Davis gone, you've got Austin Schlottmann and Chris Reed as your two interior depth guys who could play both center and guard. So 2 names to know if the Vikings don't make a move there. And then one other guy I wanted to just quickly touch on the defensive line is Jonathan Bullard, who was a former 3rd-round pick by the Bears. The Vikings have really liked what he's done in camp. So with Watts moving on, this might be a chance for, I mean, Ross Blacklock's just about to show up like a week and a half ahead of the season. It might be an opportunity first for Bullard or James Lynch, maybe even rookie Asazio Tomiwo, who made the 53, but I don't think so. I think it's probably Bullard or Lynch there.
Yeah, I think with Tomiwo, they must have believed that he was going to be picked up by somebody else if they cut him, which, 5th round draft pick, you start to get into that area where someone will probably grab that player. We'll talk about a couple of other things with the cuts, but as of recording this right now, Alexander Madison's still on the team, and people were upset about Alexander Madison takes online, but still will stay in the same spot that I've been with Alexander Madison for the entire offseason since it started getting brought up after the Raiders game. I don't see a really good reason to trade him, not unless the return is going to be absolutely fantastic, which it generally is not for running backs. And even then, a few running backs around the league who are proven got cut today that other teams would be likely to pick up. So if you're a team in need of an extra running back, you're probably not trading a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick for Alexander Madison. So you might as well just have him be on your football team where you're trying to win games and he can help you. And one of the weird things is in football, it seems like anyone who hasn't played is automatically better than anyone playing forever and always, all the time. Like if there's a right guard who's not good, why aren't they playing the backup? I mean, it used to be much more with the quarterback, the starter. Why aren't they playing the backup? The backup must be better. It's Sean Mannion. Well, Mond must be better. Somebody else, if they haven't played, if they're younger, they must be better. And so the assumption that Ty Chandler must be better than a guy who's played for 3 years and has been really effective. Alexander Madison has started 6 games. 4 times he's gone over 90 yards rushing, and another one where he didn't start. He had over 100 yards against Seattle when Dalvin Cook got hurt. I mean, he's reliable and he's solid. And Ty Chandler had 15 carries in the preseason. 15. Like, that's not a sample size. I liked what I saw, but it's 15. So to me, there was no reason to do that. You're trying to win. You are not like selling off everything for assets. The other thing is too, people love their late round picks. Everyone used to make fun of Rick Spielman, but I got receipts that show there's a lot of the internet that also thinks that 6th round picks are becoming something marvelous. But the best tweet of the day from somebody yesterday was the Peter Griffin, where he's like, but what's in the box? What if it's another box? Like, yeah, what if it's a running? What if we use that 6th round pick to get another running back or something? It's like, it's okay to just keep your good player. It's not going to like corrode your franchise. And I just want to blame Billy Beane for everybody thinking, since they watch Moneyball, that they can like, we're going to analytics this thing and get rid of every player for draft picks. It's like, no, just keep the good players. And as of this moment, they have.
Oh, Pat Elfline struggling at right guard. Let's play Drew Samia. He must be better. Yeah, there's a lot of examples like that in football, quarterback being the most blatant one where everyone loves a backup quarterback. And I get it to some extent. Like, if somebody's not doing particularly well, you're like, all right, well, let's try the other option. But most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, there's a reason why that person is playing over the other option. And I'm with you on the Madison front. Like, I would trade him for a 3rd in a heartbeat. I would maybe trade him for a 4th, but they're not going to get that. Like you said, like, who's going to, I mean, there's some dumb teams out there. I don't think there's a team that's quite that dumb. Just knowing the positional value of running backs, the amount of running backs that are out there to just be signed as free agents, like, a bunch of solid running backs are going to get cut this week. They got cut today, I'm sure. So I think like I can sort of understand where people are coming from. I don't agree with it, but Madison has had some issues at times, like including a couple big moments with like the vision, the one against the Seahawks where he had a hole on 4th and 1 and missed it and got stuffed. But that's one play. Like, you got to look at the whole body of work that he's put together in the NFL. He has almost 2,000 yards from scrimmage in his career. He runs really hard and physical, which is kind of an aspect that Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu don't have, or at least we haven't seen. So yeah, with Dalvin Cook's injury history, like, having Madison as insurance this year is important. It could, in theory, help you win a game or 2 games. Like, running backs don't mean that much in the grand scheme of things, but Madison is such an experienced player, an established player, that even if he's going to walk after this year, and he almost certainly will, like, just keep him on the team this year because it could help. And you don't want to just suddenly Dalvin Cook goes down and you're like, all right, Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu, like, you guys haven't played in the NFL regular season very much at all. You guys got to be our lead backs here. So I really think Ty Chandler has a bright future. I liked what I saw a ton from him in those 15 carries, but it's 15 carries in preseason against backups. Like, let's slow the roll a little bit. Alexander Madison is a player worth having on the team, even if it's just for this year. And then maybe you get like a 6th round comp pick in 2024 anyways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a few other things on that. The reason, so people will say like, oh, well, every running back is good. That's like, all running backs are good. But there's like the survivorship bias there. Like, they only keep the good running backs and they only elevate the ones that are really terrific. Right. So, they found this late round running back and he's good. Right. But what about all his friends that were also taken in the late rounds that were good and just got cut and you forgot about all of them? So yes, one running back, James Robinson or somebody, is pretty good that you found out of nowhere, but that doesn't mean that like Kene Nwangwu or Ty Chandler can play. The other thing too is multiple running backs, believe it or not, could get hurt at once. and so like, it's a position that you kind of can't have enough depth there because if they were to move on from Madison and then you go to Chandler and he gets hurt and it's Cook and Chandler both out, then you're left with what? Like signing somebody off the street, basically elevating
Bryant Koback to the
right.
active roster. Yeah, and if Cook gets hurt, like all the people out there who want to see Ty Chandler, you will see him. Like Alexander Madison and Chandler Owanger will split time. You're just not pouring everything on the young players.
Right. And that actually is probably better for Madison. The other thing is, too, that there are other elements of this game. There are pass blocking, there's receiving, which actually Alexander Madison is pretty good at. He's got nice hands out of the backfield. Like they've had success with him. And I think that one play, you're right, really stuck out. I love the confidence, though, of people to think that they know running back vision. I just you and I look at the all 22, the coach's film. Most of the time, I could not tell you if the running back's eyes were in the right spot because no one told me where the running back's eyes were supposed to be. So if it's outside zone in the traditional way, I could figure it out because I understand that scheme. If it's gap, well, you're not using your eyes. You're just running behind the guard. So that's pretty much set for you. It's like it's really one play, right? Like that's where that came from. It's just one play where you missed the hole and that was it. Because
there might be a couple other like minor examples, but to say he's this running back who just runs forward and has no vision is ridiculous. Like most of the time he's been in this scheme for 3 years now. Most of the time he's going to know when to cut it back, when to bounce it. Like he's going to make the right read. He's not Dalvin Cook level vision, which is why he's not a top 5 running back in the league making $60 million, but very few people are. So I think it's that one Seahawks play that stands out in everybody's mind, but like, come on, that's one play at lightning speed where you have to make that decision to try to figure out which way is going to get you the yard. And he didn't, but that doesn't mean he's blind.
Also, maybe don't call run play behind Drew Samia in that situation. Good point. Worst offensive lineman I think we've covered. I mean, I just think that that's like one of those, someone has a key drop that loses a game, or Greg Joseph misses one field goal and it's like, I don't know about that Joseph. It's like, it doesn't matter that he made all the rest of them. He's still questionable because he had that one big miss. And I think that's kind of been the case for Madison, and that he's just not blazing fast, but that's never really made that big of a difference in terms of his success. So I won't.
It's kind of the Cam Dantzler effect too. Like,
oh yeah,
I think he's a perfect example of that, where he like overall, his numbers look good. Like, he plays pretty well technically in coverage and all that. He just happens to like end up on the wrong end of big plays and big moments and highlights, which when it happens as much as it does, there might actually be something to that situation with him. But it's like, people are like, oh, get Booth in there. Dantzler sucks. Like, no, he actually is a quality starter, I think. So
Cooper Rush got cut today, by the way. So
did he?
Yeah. Backup quarterback.
I thought he was going to be the Cowboys' backup.
I don't know who's going to be their backup. I saw that he got let go. So yeah, the guy who beat the Vikings last year is not on the team anymore. So anyway, speaking of guys who are not on the team anymore, and hey, this goes to I would trade Alexander Madison for a third. Thirds don't always work out either, my friend. And boy, is the 2021 class proof. I mean, Cam Bynum and Patrick Jones are looking around going like, where'd everybody go? All these guys we came in with. You know how when they do the draft class, they usually take I don't know if they do this, but like they usually take all the draft picks. If they did it like in 2021, COVID was still kind of happening, but they'll like take them to Top Golf, or when I was in Buffalo, it's like Niagara Falls, all the draft picks, like, oh, let's go show them Niagara Falls. They're new in town. It's just Cam Bynum and Patrick Jones from that trip now at this point. And Amir Smith-Marset, after Chaz Surratt, a very strange draft pick when it happened, not here anymore. Kellen Mond, not here anymore. It appears that Sean Mannion is going to be put on the practice squad as we kind of expected. Wyatt Davis, was he real? Hard to say. Never saw him do anything. So your take on the end, aside from Patrick Jones, of the 2021 third round draft class?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing that 16 months after these players were day 2 draft picks, which you think gets you 2 years. Like, being a day 2 pick, you think gets you 2 years at least, even if you are really bad. It's hard to be so bad that you're a third round pick who gets cut before their second season. And the Vikings have 3 of those out of their 4 picks. The Mond one is like if Davis Mills becomes a good starter, which I don't think he will, but I think at the minimum he's going to be a good backup in the league for a long time. That one was right there because he was literally the next pick. That one did not age well at all. Mond just showed some flashes at times of upside, but really never put it together in terms of the decision making, the processing quickly, even the accuracy. That one not a surprise after what we saw. The Chaz Surratt one, like you said, that was I remember where I was during the 2020 draft at home because it was COVID, and I saw the news that the Vikings took Chaz Surratt. And well, first I went who because I didn't know who that was, and then I looked it up and I read about him and I like watched some film and I still didn't understand it, and maybe tried to talk myself into it, like his athleticism, or whatever. But like he was a quarterback 2 years prior to being a linebacker, a head scratcher at the time. He never did anything. The Wyatt Davis one, like, made sense to me at the time. Just, I watch a ton of Big Ten football. I knew Wyatt Davis was good. I knew at one point he was projected as a first rounder. He was like a 2-time All-American at Ohio State. But then it turns out later reporting, I don't remember exactly who reported this, but like Rick Spielman kind of went against his scouting staff with that pick. Like
Courtney,
yeah. The general consensus in the building was that they didn't want Wyatt Davis, but it was a Rick driven pick, and yeah, it did not work out at all. We never really saw him rise above like the third team in his 2 seasons. So that it's just pretty shocking. And then you throw in a 4th rounder, Janarius Robinson, who obviously it's a little different. He missed all of last year with an injury, but he gets cut today too. So it was 3 of the top 4, and then I think like 4 of the top 7. The funny thing is, like, a lot of people were dunking on Rick Spielman today, and understandably so when you get 3 third-rounders cut in one day, 16 months after they were drafted. But this could still turn out to be like a good, productive draft class for the Vikings. All that really matters at the end of the day is if Christian Darrisaw becomes a perennial all-pro left tackle, it's a good class. Like, that's what matters the most, is the guy you take at the top, especially at a premium position like that. And then Kene Nwangwu led the NFL in kick return touchdowns last year and might have some upside as a running back. Patrick Jones, it really impressed me during training camp. He's the survivor out of that 3rd round quartet. Who else? Cam Bynum is going to be a starting safety for the Vikings in week 1. Like, I don't know how long that's going to last with Lewis Dean waiting in the wings, but he's a starting safety right now. Amir Smith-Marset is their number 4 receiver. So, like, and then at the back end, Davidson and Twyman also got cut today, but that's a lot more normal for 5th and 6th round picks. Yeah, a really surprising day on the surface, but the interesting part is that it still could be a decent class overall.
Yeah, so I kind of I go back and forth a little bit on this one when it comes to that, because there is a case that, look, I mean, the first rounders failing for the Vikings in the past is what really punched a giant hole in their roster. I mean, Laquan Treadwell doesn't work out, and Mike Hughes, and others that they took in the first round, or Derek Barnett playing for Philadelphia. Like, year after year of missing on first rounders not named Justin Jefferson was a major problem for them. So Christian Darrisaw by far is the most important person in this class, and he looks good. He looks like he's about to take a next step. And you're absolutely right to bring up that they found other useful players in this draft, potentially. Smith-Marset hasn't done much yet. We'll see about him. He showed flashes, but Nwangwu, we'll see if he can repeat the kick.
We don't know about any of those guys. Pat Jones played like 100 snaps last year. Bynum played like 200. Nwangwu played like 20 snaps that weren't on special teams, but maybe.
Right. But maybe the guy's still on the team. Okay. But one of the big issues that this team has had and still continues to have, and this is not going to change, is the depth. It's like if you draft a 4th rounder, a 3rd rounder, and maybe the guy isn't good, but he's like, okay. Like, I think of Stephen Weatherly for this. I know he was a 7th rounder, but he's just a good example of somebody who was totally okay at his best. And in 2018, they lost Everson Griffin. Weatherly came off the bench. He played like 4 games and it was fine mostly. And that's like kind of what you're looking for with those players in their rookie contracts. And then you draft more, and then the next group becomes those guys if they don't become quality starters. So we almost grade them as if, like, were you a starter or were you complete garbage and totally useless? But you're not complete garbage and totally useless if you can be some sort of reasonable depth. Of course, if you get cut, then you are not reasonable depth. And that goes for even for the quarterback as well. It's like, well, now, they had to invest something to bring Nick Mullins in and a little bit of money to bring Nick Mullins in. And you're going to lose some dead cap for cutting Kellen Mond and all that. Just one by one real quick, because this is actually kind of interesting. It's like Kellen Mond was chasing something that wasn't there. I mean, it was just like, we need to draft quarterback. Well, do you got the guts to get Justin Fields? No. Okay. Well, what's kind of looks like Justin Fields? But not that he really does, but this guy's fast. He ran like a 4 or 5 something. And then on draft night, it was like, and we think he's a lot like Teddy Bridgewater. It's like, what? Teddy Bridgewater is like a first round draft pick and, all that stuff. Like, huh? Yeah, that's the 3rd round draft pick is not like that. And so they kind of took all these little jabs at Kirk, like, oh, we were looking for mobility and arm strength and stuff. And just kind of trying to be a little like, wink, wink. That's why we drafted him. But it was like a foolish move to draft a quarterback in the 3rd round because they just don't work out. So it's like, the agent, Joel Corey, who works for CBS, was tweeting like, well, this is because they changed regimes. Like, no, it's not. It's because he was horrendous and he was nowhere close. But most 3rd round quarterbacks aren't. I saw Davis Webb got cut again. Like, yep, that's how that goes. You're just flushing a draft pick most of the time when you take one of these guys in the 3rd round. But it seemed that they were chasing their own like scar tissue from Kirk and hoping that something was there. The Wyatt Davis pick, I don't know, man. I do not know. Like, even it would benefit certain people to say it was Rick's pick and not mine or whatever. Maybe some people knew. Maybe some people in the scouting department knew that there wasn't anything there. But I agree with you. When they drafted him, I was like, A+, great pick. 3rd round guard, like, has a great college resume, big guy, like, go for it. Everybody I knew liked the pick, like all the draft analysts, everything else. What I guess, in hockey, what they used to say is that someone had a torn heartilage, like they didn't have heart, that I think maybe that was it. Like, it's hard to be in the NFL. And sometimes you get out there and you lose some one-on-ones and in the off season, you're not grinding 24/7 and you just, you don't want to be in the league. Wyatt Davis always came across to me as like a pretty nice guy who was sort of worldly. I think his dad was like an actor or something. I think he'll probably have, a good career doing something else. I'm not sure that he ever had that like killer instinct to be an NFL player. And Chaz Surratt, yeah, you nailed it with Chaz Surratt. That was just weird. It was just a weird pick. And look at these positions: backup quarterback, guard, linebacker, like premium positions just being ignored. Not a corner, not a receiver, not something that might matter there. So sorry for the long rant about that, but it actually is kind of fascinating. And Zach Davidson, man, you missed an opportunity there, my friend. I mean, it was right there for you. Zach Davidson's season, and he gets cut for Ben Ellefson to stay on the team.
Yeah, Zach Davidson had the opportunity, like more than you could really ask for, because the Tyler Conklin is gone. Irv Smith got hurt. Like, his only competition was like Johnny Munt, Ben Ellefson, and like a 7th round rookie, Nick Muse. And he still couldn't get it done, which, like, in general, when talking about these picks, I don't think I know we are using hindsight, but like, it's not complete hindsight. Like, there were some things that you've touched on where like the process at the time was flawed. Kellen Mond, like, who else was a 3rd round quarterback? Sean Mannion, who they also cut today. Like, it just doesn't really work out there ever. Like, you can count on one hand, like the Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. Like, that is just such a rare finding a needle in a haystack type of thing. That like doing it at the time just to maybe save face for not taking a 1st round quarterback always was probably not going to pan out. I think the hope was probably that Kellen Mond was at least going to be a decent backup, which didn't materialize. The Wyatt Davis thing, yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add about that. It's just strange given his college pedigree and what he did there. that he couldn't even become like a capable second team guard. It's just weird. The Surratt one, yeah, it's just a spectacular whiff. So
as we speak, Courtney Cronin texted me about Wyatt Davis, because as the internet want to do. So I don't want to get too caught up on the internet, because there's like lots of people who do lots of things on the internet, and a lot of them are weird. But but people went after her for that Wyatt Davis report, which is true. And sometimes I just don't understand talking yourself into things that there's no evidence of talking yourself into it. Like, if a guy couldn't even be active on game day as a rookie 3rd round draft pick who was originally slated to start, it's not good. Like, it's not a hot take. So
yeah,
kind of funny. Courtney hasn't been on the show in a bit because she's been covering the Bears, but she will be back, and she will take her victory lap on that one. So what's left? We do, like, if you have a Luigi Villain take, go ahead and make it. But Chris Reed and Austin Schlottman both remain on the offensive line for now. I know you brought that up. The cornerback group, Chris Boyd stays, kind of makes sense. Perry Nickerson will probably end up on the practice squad or whatever. Ryan Wright certainly earned his spot as the punter. Like, what else do we have here?
Yeah, there's a few others at just like the back of the roster that I think are worth discussing a little bit. This whole process, I thought the Vikings would keep 6 receivers, just because this is like this new Kevin O'Connell, a slightly more pass heavy offense where maybe we're going to see some 4 receiver sets. But the thing about like the positions and the numbers of guys at certain positions, it doesn't really matter that much when you have the ability to elevate from the practice squad and be flexible with signing guys after week 1 and various things like that. So they end up waiving Tristan Jackson, Myron Mitchell, and Dan Chisena to just keep 5. Jalen Naylor is the 5th. Would Jalen Naylor have even made it if BC Johnson doesn't tear his ACL the other day? I don't know if that's the case. As it is, all of the rookies made the roster with the exception of Muse, the 7th rounder, which wasn't surprising. Then they keep 10 offensive linemen, including both Oli Udoh and Vidarian Lowe, which was interesting to me. I thought they would keep one or the other, although I guess Jesse Davis was also on the team. So I suppose that makes sense. I don't know if Udoh is going to stick around all year. He was a really kind of disappointing player throughout the preseason. For me, I don't know, Twyman gets waived. They keep Troy Dye over Blake Lynch. That one's slightly interesting, but that one was kind of like Troy Dye's been ahead on the depth chart all offseason. So no matter what you think about, hey, Blake Lynch has played more and been more productive over the last 2 years. Clearly, this defensive coaching staff thinks Troy Dye is a better fit for what they're going to do. There really weren't many shockers or many even surprises. The Armon Watts thing was the stunner of the day, and we're still kind of waiting to see if there's any more fallout or explanation for what happened there.
Yeah. So I think with the wide receiver position, that one is kind of worth watching. I don't know if Odell Beckham is a real potential option. I kind of think that with someone like Odell Beckham, he has no reason to sign with a team right now. Why not just wait? And then when somebody needs a receiver, he basically did this last year. It was like, all right, Browns, get rid of me, and Super Bowl. Like, yeah. why wouldn't you do that again?
It worked out well for him too.
Right. I mean, like Kansas City, for example, oh no, Valdez Scantling went down. Guess you need a receiver. Here I am to play with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it seems to make too much sense to me for him to do that. And
there is I will say a receiver, and obviously Vikings fans, Minnesotans kind of leapt all over this one, but there's a fellow graduate of the Minneapolis public school system, which I am one, Southwest High School, but Minneapolis North's Tyler Johnson, who tore it up at the U and then played, I think he's played 2 seasons with the Tampa Bay Bucks, Super Bowl champion as a rookie. He was kind of in the mix to be like their 4th or 5th guy, but I've read he struggled with some drops at times. He was a somewhat surprising guy who was cut today. So The Vikings are 12th on the waiver priority. It's the same as the draft order. So by tomorrow morning, we're recording this on Tuesday, by Wednesday morning, they could put a claim on him. I don't know if they'd get him. I don't know if they'd even put a claim on him. Like, again, it might be a situation where fans see, oh, Tyler Johnson, like, he was awesome in college at Minnesota. Maybe he's not actually that good, which would explain the Bucs releasing him. But a name to keep an eye on, and I always support my fellow Minneapolis products.
As you should, and he really was spectacular with the Gophers. I would support this type of move. The only thing is that, we get pretty excited about, like, oh, this guy got cut, they should pick up this guy, and they're going to grab that guy. And it becomes a big talking point, and maybe even emergency podcasts from people like ourselves. But you go through the list, your Blake Bells, your Tremaine Brocks, like, it's hard to find anyone that the Vikings have picked up this late in the process that has actually been able to make a difference. And so it seems like your roster is your roster, even though things can change. But fundamentally, unless it is an Ndamukong Suh, unless it is an Odell Beckham, or the biggest shocker, JC Treader, or whatever other center, if it was some sort of major trade that they made for a center, okay, like, that is going to change what's going on. But the guy who gets cut and comes in, I mean, even like a Michael Floyd that they brought in earlier in the offseason, like, we talked about that way too much. There was even Albert Wilson, the Tajay Sharp, like, these depth receivers rarely end up making a big difference. So as much as I want to agree with you and get on board with the Tyler Johnson idea, which I think, as far as quality of player who gets cut at this point, he's probably toward the top, but you miss so much chemistry building opportunity. And if it's Odell Beckham, sure, he can fit into the Rams. He's like one of the most talented receivers in the league. But if it's a fringe guy, it's usually pretty hard. So what they have to hope is that KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson stay extremely healthy. And the same goes for Irv Smith, because the fact that Zach Davidson didn't work out, you're talking about nobody to catch passes. And you could say, like, oh, well, it's not a tight end driven offense, but the Rams' second leading receiver last year was their tight end. Like, I think that the tight end does make a big difference in this offense. So they need Irv Smith to stay healthy. And it's sort of ironic that the place where I feel like they have some depth, and imagine the Vikings trading away a depth player at this position, is actually offensive line. It's kind of fun. Like, yes, for the first time ever. So that receiver room is going to be and tight end very much walking on eggshells, I think, for the whole year. Like, nobody turn an ankle, nobody get turf toe, because at that point, then it's Amir Smith-Marset, and I don't know. That BC Johnson injury really might end up making a difference.
Yeah, I think it matters a little bit. It's not ideal for their depth there. This really quickly on the tight ends. I was trying to think of like a Vikings waiver claim that has made some sort of difference, and technically Ben Ellefson was a waiver claim, and now he has made the 53-man roster. So that's probably like the best case scenario out of a waiver claim, is you just get somebody capable of being on your team and you make a slight upgrade there. One other name I will throw out that, like, again, like with Tyler Johnson, probably won't happen. And if it were to happen, wouldn't be some game changer. But Kendall Blanton was a tight end with the Rams last year, who was waived a week or two ago, picked up by the Commanders, and then he was cut today. Which again might say something about him that he's been cut twice in the past 2 weeks, but he was a fairly productive player for the Rams. So there's that instant connection there with Wes Phillips, who was the Rams tight ends coach. Would not shock me if they look to bring in somebody like him just to add a little bit of depth.
Yeah. I think that there's a handful of guys that it wouldn't be shocking if all of a sudden it was like somebody that their scouts or Ryan Grigson or Kwesi or whoever knows from the past. Like, we kind of knew where to trace the dots to Rick Spielman. We don't really know this as much with the new regime, but I guess clear that they wanted to shape this roster the way that they wanted to shape it. It didn't include Armon Watts. We'll see if they end up doing something with that money right after this podcast or regretting it. I mean, we've only got like 11 hours left to pod here through the night, Will. No, I'm just kidding. But, that will be the next thing that we watch, because it's got to happen fast. They're going to get right back on the practice field, and then it's like 10 days from now we are playing football. So if they're going to pick somebody up, it used to be on a Saturday, right? So they used to have the Saturday, and then they would have like Monday they'd get back on to practice, and maybe they would go from there. So it's never much time, but it feels like you are really, kind of behind the ball when it comes to picking up an offense or having any possibility to make an impact if you're a new player. So that goes under the, we will see if there's something that they do here soon, but it's the Vikings, so it always seems very likely. But excellent breakdown, sir. And make sure you check out all of Will's analysis. You are on top of everything today. You are like the go-to for what is going on with every cut that could impact the Vikings. So I was following you closely today.
Oh yeah, I was on Twitter basically all day. So it was an interesting day. It's always kind of a fun one, but I'm excited to kind of put it in the past. And we'll hear from Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell a little later this week, and then I'm gonna go to Chicago for one last little mini vacation this Labor Day weekend, and then it's Packers week, football time.
Football time. All right. Thanks for your time, Will. And we will have football time again very soon. And then we start turning our eyes to the Packers. So thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time.